In the Lab, a Texans podcast that takes a different look at things. Drew Dougherty and John Harris have their lab coats and goggles on, and the Bunsen burners burning. Here's Drew.
Hey there, this is In the Lab. I'm Drew Dougherty, and look at that. John is down in the studio, and I'm up in my office, but we're both at the stadium. We're probably about 100 yards separated from each other, but we're not going to see each other today in person because that's just how this works now. You have to be quarantined, so to speak, and I do as well. But we're both healthy. It's just you're going to be interacting and seeing the players and being on the field, which is a good thing. And let's talk about that in a sec. But first of all, how are you doing?
Doing okay. It is, I will say, a little bit weird being down here. Not so much in the ditch because that's where I am. It's like in the office, we have two homes, and I spend kind of equal time upstairs, downstairs. But
this is pre-COVID too. This is pre-COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would even say you spent more time down there. That was like your auxiliary office, but I think you spend more time in your auxiliary office than you do up here. Yeah,
because, I mean, most of the things that we do can do down here. And if I'm writing something, sometimes it's good to just come down here and have it quiet. So now I'm in here with you saw Suds last week, Nicholas Patterson, our intern. So I shouldn't even say intern. He's way too good to be an intern. But the three of us we got this area in the that we normally have for all of us to share. It's the three of us for, I would think, the season, but can't go upstairs. Now, I didn't have much upstairs in my office to begin with, and I think maybe that has to do with just maybe this old sports talk radio, you could be fired at any moment sort of mentality, that I just don't keep stuff upstairs because if I've got to go, I'm just going to go. You know, it's just out the door and away you go.
I don't think you're in danger of being fired anytime soon. And, yeah, it's kind of a contrast to all the junk behind me because I got
that ain't junk, man.
Yeah.
I know all those photos, just watching your kids grow up, man. I know all those photos right there, and it's really cool. I like coming in there to see them because then you see them like that, and then you see them starting to grow like weeds, and you're like, whoa, man, why don't you stay like that? Because you stay like that, then that means I stay younger too.
Yeah. Well, you know, last week I was I basically come into the office about one day a week. And I can't remember what was going on last week, but I had a lot of time to kill. And I thought, you know, a few people have asked me, well, what's this picture in your office I saw behind you? Or I saw that one by your side because I've shot Dear Drew in my office for the last 6-7 years. But then recently I've shot some of the TV shows here. You and I have done the podcast in here. So people have said, well, what's that? So what I did was on Instagram stories, I basically showed every picture and then gave a little commentary on
that's cool.
How this came about. Yeah, so at Dougherty Drew on Instagram, it's office stories if you want to check that out. Had fun doing it. You're in there, John. You're up on the wall, you know, behind me.
I'm up on the wall somewhere.
Yeah, it was fun stuff. So talked about that. And then I didn't talk much about it, but like there's Brian Pittman, former long snapper before John Weeks, just for a teensy tiny bit before John Weeks.
Yeah.
And then also got Philip Supernaw and Brooks Reed. Can't remember why those nameplates got in my possession, but I thought it'd be a nice random trio to put up. So
you want to know mine? Like, okay, so those are, and it actually is, is seemingly apropos for today, and you'll know why. But those are all nice and fancy. Now, back in the '80s when I was in high school, it was not really that way, even at colleges. So in the late 80s, my coach decided that we were going to go to Oklahoma State University for baseball camp. Gary Ward put together this scientific hitting method. Yeah. And we applied it and won a district for 2 years, and it was great. And we loved going to Stillwater. We had a really good time. So we would come and go through different areas of the baseball facility, and we ended up going through the Oklahoma State locker room at some point. And I look up, and they still got the tape up on the lockers of the players. And there was Robin Ventura's tape on the locker. And I was like, oh, man. He's my favorite college baseball player. I loved watching him hit. He was just so smooth. He had that long hitting streak. And he was just such a good dude. And I made a comment about, man, I wish I had that tape. Something like that, you know, just as a memento. And so we drove in two separate cars, and we're kind of jam-packed into one car. And my buddy goes, hey, got you something. And I was like, what? He reaches into his bag and he gives it to me, the tape off of Robin Ventura's locker. And I think, and now I could be wrong, but I think I saw today's the anniversary of the Nolan Ryan, Robin Ventura fight, which I always find interesting because I'm obviously a huge Nolan Ryan fan because he's from Houston. He's from Alvin. We used to play against his son, Reed, when we're the same year. So we played basketball and baseball against each other. So I loved Robin Ventura. Now he's fighting with one of my favorites, Nolan Ryan. I had a hard time with that. It was really hard. But I had, for the longest time, up in my room when I was in high school, and then on at the college, the room stayed the same. So until I moved away for good. But Robin Ventura's little tape off his locker. So Robin, if you weren't looking for it, sorry, man. It ended up the Harris household.
The best friends are the ones that steal for you, evidently. I got to tell mine. I got to weigh in on mine. So when Nolan Ryan signed with the Rangers, that was a dark day in young Andy Dougherty's life back in 1980. He signed in 88, so 89 was his first season.
Yeah.
Really, really sad. But I still followed him, still got all his baseball cards, all that stuff. And then I remember we didn't have cable until I was a junior in high school. And that happened. That fight happened after – it was the summer of going into my sophomore year. But I was on a trip in San Antonio, and the hotel had ESPN. And I'd never really watched SportsCenter. And I saw the fight, and I was just like, oh, that's amazing. Well, SportsCenter kept repeating itself, as it does. I was locked. I watched SportsCenter like 4 hours straight, and I was loving it. It was so good. Yeah. And then many, many years later, I think around 2006, 2007, around there, maybe even 2008, the College Baseball Hall of Fame is now in Lubbock, Texas. And,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he was in one of the first induction class, one of the first players inducted, rightfully so. He was an amazing college player, and he was a good sport about it. Like, he got asked when we interviewed those guys, and he had a really diplomatic answer. But I remember thinking, he's a nice guy. That was probably just a heat of the moment type of thing. So it's amazing how your perceptions change once you age and all that. But anyways, let's not talk about Nolan Ryan, although we could talk about Nolan Ryan all day long. Earlier this morning, Randall Cobb as well as Whitney Merciless spoke with the media via Zoom and had some cool things to say. I think with Cobb, what I noticed most is he's ready. He's going to be excited to play, but he's longing for more practice time. He missed out on maybe 25, 30 practices in OTAs and minicamp that he would have had with Deshaun Watson. So he's going to catch up to speed in that regard. But he said a few things. He talked about Watson's accuracy, which I think is very important. And he also reiterated a few times, this guy's been a winner at every level, and he just finds a way to make plays. But not getting to go through that work and not getting to build that chemistry that you typically do in the late spring, early summer, could be detrimental. So how do you build that up? Because the slot receiver position, you think, is in its best hands now, not just for the Houston Texans, not just for Bill O'Brien's time as a coach, but maybe for the entirety of the Houston Texans. This might be the best slot receiver, the most capable slot receiving guy for the Texans that we've ever seen in Randall Cobb. He's the most accomplished, certainly, with what he's done in the past. But what's your take on what you saw and what you heard from Randall Cobb, Johnny?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I took out of it, he was very, very blunt and straightforward because he was asked about, you were there 1 year with Dak. What was that like versus what you have going on now? Now, the hope is obviously Randall will be here for a while, but
sure.
In comparison, he said, look, last year with Dak, I had all those OTA practices. I had the mini camps. I went through – Dak and I went Dak through to me in the offseason. We could do all that. We haven't been able to do that. And I know a lot of people hear that and they think, okay, quarterback and receiver, they got to be on the same page. I think for a guy considered to be a slot receiver, it's even that much more important because you're navigating an area of the field as a slot receiver that is filled with football landmines all over the place. You've got linebackers that are looking to take your head off. You got nickel safeties. You got different safeties that are buzzing down. They've got eyes on you. You got safeties on the other side of the field that have eyes on you from across the field. That's a Patriots one. They might double you from across the field. Like you don't see that double. You're like trying to get away from the guy that's man coverage, and you run across the field, and boom, there's the other guy doubling you. So you're navigating that football landmine, if you will. There are going to be times where you have to just outright trust, if I run to this spot, the ball's going to be there. And that's the kind of thing you can start to work on, or you can work on when you're having those throwing sessions with your quarterback. And that didn't start till this past week. So hopefully they can get up to speed and get on the same page early on. I go back to NFL Films did a show on Peyton Manning, and it was 2013. So it was after his really big 2012 season out in Denver, and they signed Wes Welker, and they go to Duke. And it was a 3-day weekend at Duke. Eli and Peyton throwing to their receivers, and Welker was out there. And Welker had just come off his time with Tom Brady. And so Welker is talking to Peyton about, well, Tom wanted this, or this is how I run that route, or this is how I do it. And Peyton's like, no, I want you to do this, or yes, I like that. Okay, let me add that. Yeah. And so they kind of would have this back and forth about what they liked about different routes. And I always go back there to that point and think they had such success in 2013, even though they never played together, because of that. Obviously, their understanding of football and their understanding of different defenses and those things, that no question helps. But having that rapport of going back to, hey, well, remember when we were at Duke and we did this? Well, they can do that, and they did that, and they did extremely well. Randall and Deshaun aren't going to have that, but I think you can build that in due time. Can you get to that, hey, we think along the same lines? I'm sure Edelman and Brady, who had been together, probably didn't every single play think along the same line, but they were on the same page. It comes in time, and it comes in reps. And hopefully the stuff they were able to do through Zoom meetings like we're doing and others, they're able to get to a point where they can understand, look, on this route, I'll get here. This route, I need to get here. And the ultimate thing is how you do it in a game. Because you can do all this other work, and that's great. But you can get in the game, and after doing all that stuff in practice, and all of a sudden you're seeing a coverage that's completely different. So you have a veteran at quarterback, you have a vet at slot receiver, and they've seen some things. So they're hopefully going to be able to know how to adjust to all of that on the fly as they go.
So that's something that's, I don't want to say working against the Texans' favor, because every quarterback and receiver in the league is having to, mitigate this setback, so to speak.
Right.
Lack of playing time, lack of chemistry. I thought it was very interesting. Mark Berman asked a question, hey, you're wearing glasses. What's the deal with that?
Yeah.
Well, Cobb said, I saw the optometrist, and my vision had gotten really, really bad over the last 2 years. So now he's got a new prescription for contacts, a new prescription for glasses. He had a good season last year. Yeah. He had a pretty good – he had 15 yards a catch. Do you think having better eyesight might help a little bit? I'm not being a Weisenheimer with this question. No. Like, might that help a little bit with his performance on the field, having better eyesight, or having at least, the eyesight you need to have as a functioning adult, as a functioning football player?
If I remember correctly, there's a former player in our building that actually could speak to that, because I think Andre Johnson went through that situation where he was having, if I remember correctly, where he was having some issues seeing it felt like just in vision in general, and even seeing the football, and he went and got his vision checked, and I think he got it checked for, the full gamut, not just for football, but if I remember correctly, he said it helped him having his vision checked. And look, it sounds obvious. Like, you see the football, especially in the slot. You're looking for the point of that football. You're looking for where your hands are supposed to go. And look, you have a general idea of where the ball is, but just being able to lock in and focus on the spin of the ball, was it tipped? Does it have a slight wobble? Those kind of things, they sound minute in nature, but to an NFL slot receiver,
might be a big deal.
They can end up being huge. I think it's a huge deal.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting. I giggled when the question was being asked, but then the more I thought about it after his answer, I was like, there might be a hell of a lot more to this than we thought. So good. Yeah. That's Mark Berman. He asks some good questions. He's a very thorough reporter. So kudos to Berman. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this In the Lab. Let's do it again next Tuesday. Sound good to you, John?
Sounds perfect, man. We'll do it from right here.
I might come in. Yeah, I might come in.
There you go.
I might be back in my house with the dogs and all that, but we'll see. You know.
Either way, man, we'll get it done.
All right, take care, John. Thank you all for watching and listening. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to know when we post new content.